Welcome back to my channel. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Tyrese. Now, are black men allowed to be vulnerable? Are they really, or is it something that we say we want, we need, but in reality, we don't want it? Now, if you are new here, I'm Denise Brady, and I like to talk about some things that provoke me, make me want to talk more about vulnerability, lots of things, reality TV. So stick around, subscribe to this video, make sure you hit that like, okay? Now, watching the Breakfast Club interview this morning, I was expecting the usual Tyrese, and we got a little bit of that, but towards the end of the interview, he became very vulnerable. He actually was crying. And before that, he did something I really don't see a lot of black men do, and that is give a lot of credit to the women behind them. Some people might say behind every strong black man, or what's the saying? Behind every black man is a strong black woman. I don't think we see that as much anymore, but in this case, to see this black man who's had a lot of issues, mental health issues, some of them he acknowledges, other ones he still has a lot of stigmatized thinking when it comes to mental health. But to see him give so much credit to this woman that he's been dating for the last 4 years, who has uplifted him, stood by him through everything for 4 years, because we've seen Tyrese then go through some things. I was like, wow, we really don't see that too much anymore. And to be on a platform like the Breakfast Club, are men allowed to really fill space? When I say fill up the space, I mean fill it up with emotions, with honesty within themselves, and talk about things that I think sometimes women say that they want but are not ready for. Clock it, you want it but you're not ready for it. A black man to be vulnerable, to acknowledge the things that he has not done right, the things he is still healing from. And sometimes when men say that they are healing from old relationships, you still in love with her? How you gonna be with me but think about somebody else? You can be in a new relationship and still healing from old past things that another person has left you with. And Tyrese, to me, is an individual that at times you don't know what you're gonna get. But I feel like in this Breakfast Club interview, he was very honest and transparent about so many things. And one thing we don't talk about is grief of relationships. And I think he is still someone who is dealing with mental health issues. He has a lot of stigmatized thinking when it comes to depression, anxiety, medication. He is someone who believes that, oh, it's just a trend. People are saying that for attention. So I think there's a lot of stigma still left to be broken within him and a lot of the world. But when he started to be real and he let go of everything that he has everything that people are used to seeing from him, he took off his watch, he took off the jewelry, camera to camera, and said, all of this watch is fake, this bracelet is fake, and became just so attuned to what he was feeling inside and felt comfortable enough to open up and say that out loud. He didn't directly say that he was broke, but he did admit to struggling and not being in a financial place that he would like to be. He's seen his career go up and down. The industry love him, push him back. Women love him, push him back. I think there's a lot of hurt in that marriage. He really didn't think that he was going to get married one time like a lot of people do. And I'm sure there's accountability to be taken on both sides, hers and his. But in this interview, he was sharing just how hurt he is and how he's still healing from a lot of things. And black men, I don't think, are given the space and opportunity to be vulnerable. I know some of y'all are going to come in my comments and say, yes, they do. Yes, they are. They're given the space. Do you really know what it's like to hold space for somebody? What does that space look like? And I often say that in my videos, and people are like, what does holding space mean? Let me give it to you, okay? It means when your partner comes to you, your friend, a sibling comes to you and they give you something vulnerable, they share something with you, can you hold the space of not being judgmental, not being critical, not pointing the finger, just sitting in what they are pouring out of themselves? And I don't think a lot of people can. And I think that's what a lot of relationships nowadays are missing is emotional intelligence, secure vulnerability. And Tyrese was like, I know that everybody is thinking one thing. He even talked about him wearing that beard and told the story about him seeing the Star Spangled Banner, which I think people are just so sensationalized about. But it was a very logical story about why he showed up looking the way he did. Okay. He said it was because he was on a shoot and the people at the stadium were like, hey, we need you by this time. Okay. So the shoot he was at, it wasn't going to be enough time for them to take all that stuff off and then for him to make it all the way to Inglewood to perform. Okay, so that's pretty much the story. All right. But yeah, I think Tyrese is someone who does have some mental health things going on. Some people think he's a narcissist. I think that word is just overly used. I don't see narcissism in him, maybe some traits, but a lot of it is trauma. The trauma of losing his mother, grief. The trauma of losing his marriage, grief. Yes, that's to me, grief. And I wonder about the relationship he has with his daughter. I think he has an older daughter and maybe a younger daughter by his ex-wife, but he didn't really talk about that in the interview. And I wonder about that dynamic. Is there grief and loss there? I would assume so, because when you had a child with your ex-wife, I'm sure you did not think that you would be sharing custody. The child would be going back and forth. You want the child to be raised in the same home. So there's grief with that also. Grief is not just someone not being with us anymore on this earth. Grief is the loss of things, the loss of relationships, the loss of yourself. People oftentimes don't recognize you have to grieve sometimes parts of yourselves that need to die out. The toxic part of you, the trauma that's holding you back, the person you were in that relationship at that job, the sister you were when you were going through hard times and how you treated other people. Those are levels of me to grief. And I think men in particular, the world says that they want more of that. They want to see vulnerability, transparency. But what do they get when you give it to them? Ridicule, weaponization. Are we really living in a world that's ready for men to be vulnerable and transparent about what they're going through? This to me is the first time I've ever seen Tyrese just shed all of that stuff, the mask that he's been wearing for the world, to just be like, this is what it is, y'all. This is what it is. I've been sued. This watch ain't real. These diamonds ain't real. I've been through a lot of ish in my life. Some of it I have not healed from. And some of it I think I have, but I really haven't. Because of the mental health aspect, I think he might be living with some depression, but he's just not cognizant of disconnecting the conditioning he has had about mental health in the Black community and amongst men to recognize and say out loud, yes, I am someone struggling mentally. I think there's just so much stigma, ridicule, social media. I think if he was to say out loud that he is suffering from some mental health things, the internet would run wild like they do whenever he starts crying. This one I have not seen as many people pick up on the interview. Maybe it was too real for them. Maybe it wasn't a sensationalized moment as they have hoped. But I wonder, are men allowed to be vulnerable? Especially Black men, because there's this like, you have to be strong. You have to be a provider. You have to be able to show up for a woman no matter what. But what happens when that woman's not able to show up for you? Are you guys equally yoked? Is the relationship reciprocal in so many ways, more than splitting the bills 50-50, more than paying for dinner, okay? More than making me feel like a queen? Do you make your man feel like a king? These are all the things that I think people don't want to talk about because we focus so much on how women are treated. But sometimes I think men need the same thing in relationships, but we are, I don't know, scared, not ready for it. Because you can say you're waiting for the person who can be with you at your weakest, hold me, see me from who I really am. But when that man presents himself, are you really ready? Or is he a crybaby? Is he too soft? Is he too sassy? Is he corny? Is he too nice? I can go on. These are all the things I hear. And I'm like, it sounds like you're used to dating a certain type of man that the one you asked for, you're not ready for, sis. You're not ready. But I think it's going to take some time for us to acknowledge and recognize that sometimes women can be a part of the problem. Now, I'm not saying all men are, you know, in the space of looking at themselves, healing, recognize the part that they played. Because we saw last week, Neo and Nick Cannon. Okay. So that's why it's like, it's not every single man is in this place. I think sometimes these men have platforms that they feed into this narrative that, and they have people on the stage with them that feed into the narrative that I was right. And all these people around me are saying that I was right. So why should I spend time with self-reflecting? Okay. Or it's a fake self-reflection only for me to get views, subscribers, making coin off the video. But I think there's this dynamic happening where I hope that we can see more men being transparent, more vulnerable, open. Because I'm sure behind the scenes, I'm sure Tyrese got some text messages, people reaching out saying like, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for being transparent. But will those same people step to the front of the room and do the same thing or acknowledge and support Tyrese? Or are we going to do the same thing that we have been doing all these years and ridiculing, weaponizing, making profit off of people's pain? Now, here's my thoughts as a therapist. I think we need more vulnerability, more transparency. We need to have more spaces, safe spaces, and ask yourself, do I hold space for my partner? What does space look like? Because a lot of times people did not grow up with those spaces that they desire. Let me repeat that. You may want something that you do not know how to provide yourself because it was not mirrored to you. Yes, you want the vulnerability, you want the healthy relationship, but do you know how to provide that because it was not mirrored to you as a child? So now you're in a relationship that might be healthy and you're dog pedaling, trying to keep your head above water, trying to figure it out. Okay, but it's okay to recognize that there's some work to be done inside of me so that I can provide for my partner, so that we can grow together, so that there can be vulnerability and a safe space for us to both acknowledge we're a work in progress. But I want to know your thoughts, of course. So let me know in the comments, like this video. Do you hold space? Can you provide something for someone you have not done for yourself? Can you provide something for someone that you've never seen before? Are you asking for something in your relationship, potential partner, that you do not know how to provide? But of course, I got people to help, clients to see, things to do. So I want to know your thoughts. But of course, make sure you hit that like, that subscribe, because of course, your girl will always get into it a little cutesy, a little demure. Okay, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.